I still haven't got the boat cooker connected, but don't worry, I'm not a big griller. It's an attempt. Just a quick side note here, friends. I hope you appreciate these absolutely awful jokes I've been doing. As funnier than that joke itself was the fact that just as I was about to start recording, a random couple walked into the place I was, and I'm like, I'm so sorry for what you're about to see, then had to record that really awkward, awful bit to camera, and then quickly scuttle off muttering about YouTube and very red-faced. Anyway, let's get stuck into some lovely videos of boating footage and stuff. Hello there folks, I'm Dan Brown from sortofinteresting.com, and today you are joining me on board good old Narrowboat Abel's Ark for an absolutely beautiful 6 AM boat trip. And as this is one of the Boat Life vlog videos, after we've finished the boat trip we'll stick around at the canal side for my day afloat and heading up over the fields to get supplies from the shops at the local village. Just classic sort of boat life stuff, I suppose. So, just a side note here, some of you may have noticed I've started throwing in a number at the start of some of the video titles. Basically, it was a much requested feature even back when I was on my old boat, Narrowboat Tilly, years ago, as these are the chronological videos where you don't have to watch them in order, and each video is its own standalone video, so you don't have to go and watch the first 7 videos before watching this one. But if you wanted to watch them in the order that they actually happened in real life and the events unfold, then that will be the actual sequence order. And then you've got boaty bonus videos that are just little extra boat videos that I put in that aren't particularly in any order or sequence at all. So numbered videos are the main line, sort of almost the story videos. Anyway, let's get stuck into talking about boating. As you can see, 6 AM on the canal, beautiful sunny day like this. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's difficult to find words that add to the images that you're seeing on the screen. I think the only thing that could really sum it up is if I physically went and gathered up however many thousand people, like almost 20,000 people that are subscribed to this channel, and individually took you all on a boat ride. That's the only way I could really get across more what it's like being out and about boating in this beautiful early morning sunshine on such a rural canal as the Llangollen. You can see the boat was just drifting from the side, so I ran back and tightened my ropes up a little bit. And what am I saying there? Let's find out. Well, my friends, the first lock gate is open. This is it. The Ark is just sat down there waiting to come up into the lock. A little bit nervous if I'm honest, but at 6:30 AM, what an absolutely beautiful start to the day this is. And here we are, the magic moment that I finally went into my first lock in over 2 years and with my new boat. And really, it's quite a strange experience, because I think having the new boat and not having done a lock for such a long time, it allowed me to put those two things together and start to imagine and dwell on, oh, but it might be big and heavy to drag around, and oh, the flow of water might be hard to control with one person. And really, in total honesty and reality, it was absolutely fine, and it was actually a thoroughly enjoyable experience overall. Well, I've got to be completely honest with you right now, my friends. At 15 foot longer than Narrowboat Tilly, this boat seems to fill this lock an awful lot more for that extra 15 foot. Right, it's time to start filling. It's quite an interesting thing to note as well that while I've been recording this voiceover and playing it back and then playing it compared to the actual at the lock recordings, just how loud the roaring water is. It's something that you realise and you know when you're there, but it's not until you're actually talking and recording and hearing your voice in normal conditions on board a boat compared to actually at the lock side that you realise, wow, it really is a very, very loud experience going through the locks. You saw as well as we were coming up there just how much water there is leaking in that lock, and that's one of the things that helps, I suppose, in some respects, the flow of water down from Llangollen all the way down to Nantwich. but on the right hand side of the screen you may see that there's a sort of a drop off in the canal, and it's a long section that just allows a little bit of water to trickle over each like, I don't know, however many foot distance that drop off is, and then that runs down the side of the loch down to the lower side of the canal, and that itself is there to keep the flow of water going down the canal so it doesn't just reach the loch and then dry up. Okay then, my friends, you may see we've got a boat in the distance there that's coming down towards us. So basically that saved us a little bit of trouble, because we can now leave this lock gate open so that they can go straight directly in here. But as a moment of politeness and just a sort of gesture of leaving the lock in the reset position, we're lowering the front paddles so that when they come in, it's just a case of closing the gate behind them. So I've just been tipped off that there's somebody else coming down through the next lock, so we're going to have a very, very slow trip around literally one corner. Still only going to take us about 5 minutes, and that's stretching out this little journey. But as you can see, there's other people. That's another private boat that's going by that's had the same idea to get up early, probably soon after 6. Well, probably 6 o'clock exactly like me. We've met in the middle of the two locks, and they've come down through the top lock and obviously out beating the traffic in the early morning. So in true form, we slowly headed around the corner, and you can see how slow this footage is, and this is sped up I think about 8 times or so at this point. And true enough, a little boat was coming down. Well, not a little boat, that's almost a patronising way to word it. Boat was coming down through the locks, and I pulled over to the side and let it pass. Technically, we should have passed on the right-hand side and that, but as you can see, when you get close to the lock, the left-hand side of the canal's all wavy and that, so I thought I'll just let him come up through so he's not risking scraping his boat along. I'm not getting pushed around by the flow of water coming around the outside of the lock, and we can just come straight in like we did there. So as usual, I mean, I have a very simple theory when it comes to doing the locks, and that's slow and steady. So when I'm single-handedly doing the locks as well, you'll see how I've been back and to that one paddle on the right hand side, and that's just lifting a bit, letting a bit of water in, go and grab hold of a rope on the boat to stop the boat basically bouncing around all over the place, and then raise the paddle a little bit more, go and do the same. Then once everything's started to settle down, get over to the other side, raise that paddle, and then again just hold on to the boat and hope that you're not going to have any incidents. So yeah, oh, and of course lifting fenders as well, raising all my fenders before I go into a lock, as in the past I've been stuck in locks multiple times, just got wedged and then had to frantically pull the fenders up because the width of the boat and the fenders has been too wide for the lock itself. Anyway, I suppose I'll hand over to another little bit of on-site filming. And that, my friends, was the New Martin locks. Again, sun seems to have barely crept into the sky any higher. We're now probably getting on for, I wouldn't like to say, about 7:30ish, so it's been an hour and a half to get this very minimal distance travelled. But as I say, just taking it slow through the locks, always the best way to go. Slow and steady, be sensible, be safe, that's what it's all about. And again, what's the need to rush when you're in somewhere like this? And the rest of the trip you're going to see at 20 times actual cruising speed. Again, this doesn't look too fast considering it's 20 times the actual speed we were going. So you can see why boating is not the form of transport for anybody who's in a hurry, but it's certainly the form of transport for anybody who loves the countryside, as you can see. Anyway, I think I'll hand over now just after I've moored up, and you can really see why I love this place. Well, my friends, it's 20 to 8 in the morning, and I think that's just about done us for the travel. So it took an hour and 40 minutes between unmooring and mooring, give or take. Not bad going at all. And here we are at St Martin's, one of my favourite spots on the canal of all time. Absolutely love it here. And you may be able to tell just from what you're seeing on the screen and the birds twittering away in the trees above us, just why I love somewhere like this. And after all that, I went inside and had my breakfast, and then looked around and thought, you know what, this is a beautiful place, there's some beautiful fields, I need some supplies, suppose I should go shopping. Right then, my friends, as I've said so often, I've always thoroughly appreciated growing up in Oswestry and living in Shropshire in this beautiful, really rural area. And I've said in the past about how all these fields are crisscrossed with little footpaths and public rights of way all over the place, and how so many of my walks and cycle rides in the past, before I ever had a boat, ended up coming to the canals. Well, here's a good example. Basically, you're probably already aware that we are moored up just here. And where is our nearest footpath to cut across into the fields? Well, my friend, that would be just here. So this is the sort of stuff that I absolutely love as well. Like, you've got little bridges and things like this that are slowly sort of turning green with moss and stuff. And during the squeaky gate, of course, traditional countryside footpath feature that. But if we look past the lichens and the moss on the bridge here, this little channel here that the bridge is over, during the winter months, when all of this has died back and obviously there's a lot more rain, there is actually a decent flow of water, a decent little stream runs down here. And that runs almost the entire length for a good few hundred feet up the canal, right next to the, well, as I say, you've got the canal embankment, and then it drops down into the bottom of this field, where you've then got another stream. So I have to make sure that I don't forget which one I need to keep the boat on. But in all seriousness, what a terrible joke that was. In all seriousness though, we're going to walk up to St Martin's, just over the top of the hill there in almost the diagonal line. We'll see some more beautiful footage. Some of you may remember this sort of area from my videos when I lived on Narrowboat Hilly. This is one of my favourite mooring spots of all time, and this is one of my favourite little walks to go to a shop to get supplies. And again, as you can see, we've got just, well, beautiful countryside ahead of us. So as we've got cows in this field, there's quite an interesting little system in place over this little patch of farmland, where basically every now and then you find these little pieces of fencing just on their own. And there'll be some that aren't connected to anything, but at the moment you can see what this is all about. This is intended as like the passing point in the public right of way, I assume, over the electric fence along here that keeps the cows in certain sections of the certain sections of the field. So as we cut up and across the hills just behind those trees, we'll see possibly another set of these little random fence posts. But there won't be anything whatsoever connected to them. And until you see it with these makeshift sort of movable electric fencing wires leading up to it, it doesn't make any sense what on earth's going on. And no, I'm not going to put my hand on it to test if it's working or not. Prepare yourself to see one of the nicest rural places for miles around, or at least in my humble opinion. So we cross over the little bridge. Oh, again, nice squeaky gate there. And then this, when you're under the little covering of hedgerows and trees, you got the little bridge, and you can see, even though it's been really warm and sunny for a long time, still got a decent little stream coming underneath here. In the winter, sometimes it's unbelievable how much water flows down here. But as we cut across here, you can see we've got our arrow pointing us in that direction. I think that you could also, if you were brave and didn't have shorts on, go in that direction. But we're heading up to St Martin's. Close the gate, and just look at this. I absolutely love stuff like this. This is what I always think of, the secret garden and like a long lost country manor that's being retaken and reclaimed. Got your muddy track here right next to your little stream flowing down, and as I say, how much is this one of those places that I often refer to as being the sort of Lord of the Rings environment, where somewhere just in the field we'll see a hobbit quickly dash across and disappear out of sight, and we'll never know whether we really saw him or whether it's just our imagination. Although if we did see a hobbit, I can imagine that would probably be my imagination more than an actual sighting. And then up over here, oh, you can see we've got fresh cut grass. This is going to be fun for the old hay fever. And we're just basically going to cut straight up over the top here. And and hopefully we'll see the church spire soon, and we shall walk into the shop in St Martin's from there. As promised, my friends, as we've come up to the brow of the hill here, we zoom in and see the church just poking out of the trees there, and we're directly heading towards that point to join on one of the country lanes. Making a liar of me to a certain extent, here are the promised 2 little random bits of fencing, but these 2 have actually got the electrical fencing wire going through them. So I've never been up here in the past and seen so much of the wire all over the place. So, well, it's all full, what am I trying to think? Full steam ahead on the farm at the moment. And as promised, here is the church at St Martin's. Seems almost suitable or ironic, or certainly something, that it is quite literally been our guiding beacon on the way up here. And this is what it's all about, my friends. It's one of the strange things with St Martin's, that there's not really much here at all, but then there's this great big sort of half independent supermarket here. So we've got a backpack full of supplies ready to head back down. It's only about a half-an-hour walk, but I still think I may have gone overboard in stocking up on jars of pasta sauce. And here we are back home. It's been about an hour and 20 minutes out, because it's been obviously a very, very slow... Sorry, that's absolutely horrendous noise. As I say, it's been about an hour and 20 minutes because it's been a very slow, relaxed walk up there, and took a little bit longer in the shop than I normally would. So I was trying to remember what I actually wanted from there. Too much of an early morning doing the locks at 6 AM that was. I'm blaming my forgetfulness on. But yeah, as we come back out onto the towpath, you can see we've lost the boat that was ahead of us, moored up. And well, just take a look at that, as always. Fantastic place to come back to. Got the postman coming down the track behind us. So he's been to about the 2 houses down by the top lock. Not a bad post run really, this is it. Right, it's very warm out here. I'm going to get in the shade. So as you see me hopping on my bike for an afternoon ride, you might also notice yet another boat is moored up in front of us, and that's one of the things I quite like, the ebb and flow of the days out on the canal over the summer months. Even though the traffic can certainly be somewhat overbearing, it's quite interesting seeing people stop for dinner and then carry on, and then if you walk up the canal later on you might see him a few miles up, or you might not see him move at all and then move off really early the next morning, or move off really late at night. Anyway, as I still at this point had only had my new bike for a few days, I was in that sort of overexcited, I want to just get on my bike all the time, and basically I wanted to do a few more miles on it and do the routes from St Martin's to Oswestry, and then come back rural routes, cutting round a few country lanes. I say cutting as if it wasn't actually adding miles onto my trip there. And basically, because I've just been just absolutely shaving minutes off all of my bike rides all over the place since getting this new bike, I just find myself at random moments being like, right, we'll just go and do this route. While I'm moored up here, I'll go and do this, and then I can compare my times on the new bike compared to those I've got recorded in my Strava app from years ago, going to and from Narrowboat Tilly on my previous bikes. And it's just amazing how fast this bike is. Again, at this point, I'm not able to go sort of flat out down this steep hill because I'm actually catching up the car that's ahead of me. That's the sort of speed speed we're talking about. But as you can imagine, someone like me is pretty restless and can't sit still at the best of times. On a beautiful day like this, and being up since 6 a.m, we've done our boating, we've had a walk up to the shops, and now we've got a good bike ride in. So I was back on board and had settled down for a little bit. I thought, you know what, I'm getting a bit peckish. Surely this great outdoors environment is the sort of place that a fine chef such as myself would thrive. So, of course, I got the camping stove out, put it on the boat roof, and set about making the iconic Dan Brown dish, pasta and sauce with salad and wraps. Lovely stuff. Simple food for a simple person. But ultimately, as you can see, I mean, obviously at this point my proper oven wasn't connected to the gas on board, as I mentioned in that hilarious joke at the start of the video. But really, being up on the top of the roof here, surrounded by this, and just cooking away, I mean, this, come on, give me some credit. With my simple apparatus for cooking, this doesn't look too unappetising, surely. And really, I've got to say, I think that being on the back of the boat or on the boat roof, just making something simple like this in that environment, it's a great fun little thing to do in the evening. And as I say, at the end, hopefully you have a tasty treat left over. But as you can see, sat on the stern under these conditions, what a beautiful place to be, what conditions to be in. So as we zoom the camera down here, this is just showing you where I went for my evening walk. Again, this being the time heading into the height of summer where we've got these really long days. So I walked down here, this is where we zoomed into, where the water points are, and you've got the lock just through the bridge, which we'll see a little bit more of in just a moment. But I don't know, there's just something so nice about being able to be out and about on the canal in these lovely locations, having these wonderful little rural experiences, while also being about 10 minutes away from your actual home where all of your stuff is, and you can get in bed and be cosy within, say, 11 minutes of this particular spot. Lovely stuff. And as I say as well, to think that we were coming through there after setting out just after 6 a.m, and here we are in the evening, so we've seen it at sunrise and sunset. What a beautiful place to be, and what a beautiful day from start to finish. This really has been a day that illustrated so many of the things that I love about boat life, from the lovely canal trip and the wonderful boating element, and then obviously seeing all of this rural, outdoors, general, beautiful countryside that we're in for miles upon end. And then on top of that, you've got the little walk up to get supplies from the shop. And again, you're just seeing more countryside, a little bike ride, again, more countryside. And then coming out and having tea, and then settling down in the evening, more countryside. Well, my friends, I think that's just about where we're going to bring this video to a close. What an absolutely beautiful day that was from start to finish. I mean, in those weather conditions, in that sort of environment, with boots, a boat and a bike, what more could you ask for? Just wonderful stuff. Feel free, if you want to add me on Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat and Instagram and all those sort of things, then there's millions of links in the description below to check out. If you would like to support me, then please do consider checking out my short books about my boat life on my previous boat, Narrowboat Tilly, available for the Kindle. I'm also currently working on my next boat life book about moving on to Abel's Ark and getting stuck into boat life and seeing what's going to happen over the next few months as I'm writing that. There's also a paperback version that's basically a few of my old Narrowboat Tilly boat life books in one handy paperback volume. If I don't have a Patreon or anything like that, so please don't feel that you have to support me or there's any insistence that you support me. If you do want to support me, then I would say a $1.99 Kindle book purchase is probably going to give me a similar royalty to a £10 paperback purchase. So if anybody does want to, then I do say please check out The Narrowboat Lad, which was my first boat life book, with my very first steps into boat life on Narrowboat Tilly. It's almost quite a cute thing for me to read looking back at it. But anyway, until the next time, just have an absolutely fantastic day, keep it interesting, keep it boat worthy, and of course my friends, have a fantastic day and farewell.